So I probably will unhaul this at some point, even though I paid like 10 quid for this paperback. But at the same time, when I was 16, God knows what I was reading. Now that I'm thinking about it, I kind of want to give it 2 stars. But at the same time, it's like... Hello, my angels! Oh my god, my voice. Hello my angels, welcome back to another video. My name is Ro and today we are doing my October wrap up. Now I'm in my hoodie today because it's absolutely freezing in my house, so this is going to probably be a staple in the next few months. It is going to be very cold and I'm still going to refuse to put the heating on because that's how we move. So in the month of October I read the most books that I have read this year, but not the most pages. I'm actually about 200 pages off. I think may have been July was the most pages I read because I read a lot of chunky books in July, but it wasn't too far off actually. So in the month of October I read 18 books, 16 of those were physical, 1 was an ebook and 1 was an audiobook. I read a total of 4,707 pages. I don't really have a lot to talk about because 12 of those books are the Saga of Darren. So let's dive into the 6 other books that I read in the month of October. So the very first one you all may know if you have been following me this month is Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. I took the whole first week in October to read this on audio. It is huge. It is like 870 pages. Yeah, it's a lot. I did it though. I did it in 24 hours. In quotations, not including sleeping and eating, so really over 2 days in the weekend. I do have a vlog that covers this if you are interested in the card above. So Assassin's Quest was not my favourite in the series, but it was pretty solid. 4 stars overall. I ended up with the trilogy itself, I gave 544, which I think is actually not what a lot of people have done. I think a lot of people give the first one 4 stars. The second one 5 stars, and then this one 4 or 5 stars. So a little bit divisive with my opinion here, but it just was a bit boring. There was a lot of walking, but I really enjoyed it regardless. I really enjoyed Fitz, Starling, and Molly. We all hate Molly. If you ever get into this series and you haven't got into it yet, just know you are going to hate Molly. Regardless. She's so annoying. She's basically the love interest and she just demands things of Fitz all the time. Even though she doesn't interact with him in this book, she pisses me off. Lots going on. I really liked the conclusion. I liked the conclusion of all the politics coming together. Very, very interested to move on to Ship of Magic, which is the first in the next trilogy, which doesn't follow Fitz. It follows other people about like boats that come to life or are sentient if enough blood is spilled on them or something. So I'm starting that in November. I'm very excited to because I've heard it's one of people's favourites of trilogies. Not much else to say really because you can't really say much about the third in a trilogy, but I still would recommend if you haven't picked these up yet to have a go, especially if you kind of want like a project. I feel like reading all of these is kind of like a project, so I'm doing one a month. So I'm way behind the Elderling Along. I'm doing Elderlayling Along, which is delayed. Yeah. Assassin's Quest, this is the illustrated edition. You can get it anywhere. I've had a few people ask me. You can get it pretty much Amazon, Waterstones, anywhere you like. It's pretty good. Next up, I read Way of the Argosy by Sebastian de Castell. Once again, I do have a vlog for reading this, so go check out that up in the corner. This is the first in the duology, prequel duology to Spellslinger, hence the whole, you know, palette and cover being pretty much matching Spellslinger. I read Spellslinger in August, really enjoyed it, actually surprised me quite a lot about how much I enjoyed it, gave it 4 stars. This was another 4-star read for me. It was pretty solid. There were some kind of little plot twists or like reveals that I did enjoy and didn't see coming. I really, really enjoyed meeting Farius as a young girl. She's kind of like the mentor type character in Spellslinger, so to see her as a younger character is quite interesting. And as well, meeting her mentor and kind of like her passing on the shitty mentor or like mentor that winds up their student kind of attitude. It's quite funny to see that as well. Honestly, not much else to say about this. If you do want further in-depth thoughts, please do check out my vlog. But like, this was pretty solid and it was really, really quick to read. It's 360 pages, but it took me a few hours at most. I probably will try and get to the sequel soon because it just came out the same day as the paperback for this, which was why I was on the booktube tour, etc, etc. And yeah, I feel like it would be quite a quick read as a sequel as well. So I may try and do that like in December or Christmas or something. I have so many options to read things in December and I'm not sure what to pick, so. Next up, I read my first ever thriller, and that was Survive the Night by Riley Saga. This, my friend Lara in Swansea told me about because we were sat in Waterstones having a catch up when I went back for my birthday, and I was just like, oh, I fancy like just sitting here and reading something, but I don't really have anything with me because I hadn't downloaded anything on my phone or anything, and I don't buy a lot of data, so I didn't have any data. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I want something quick, so she suggested this. I bought it, and man, it was quick. Again, a couple of hours, and it's about 320 pages. So this one was super quick. It's about a girl who gets into a car with a guy who she starts to suspect is the serial killer who has been like plaguing the university campus that she's on. That's kind of just the premise of it. There isn't really much else you can say other than her roommate was one of the girls who got killed by this serial killer. She basically is trying to go home for Thanksgiving or just before Thanksgiving or something because she's really depressed that her roommate has died. She wants to go home to Ohio or whatever, and she needs a ride. So she puts it up on like a bulletin board, like in the uni, and like this guy walks up and is like, oh, I'm going that way, but I'm leaving tomorrow. Like, is that okay? So it's kind of like a sharing petrol kind of thing. I personally would not get into a car with a stranger, so that part I really had to suspend my disbelief, especially if there was a serial killer on the loose. But I did understand the kind of, there was almost reasoning behind it that she was so in a depression fog that she just wasn't thinking straight, wasn't like making decisions properly because she was so depressed and sad. So I do kind of get that side of it, but that was something that did annoy me, especially kind of halfway through the book. She does get a chance to get away, but chooses not to, which to me was just like, what? But it did end up a 4-star. It did end up a 4-star because the ending was so wild. Like, the ending was so good that it definitely pushed it back up to a 4 for me. My first thriller, I think it went well. But I don't think I would buy thrillers to keep in the future because I don't feel like I would ever reread this. And it's not like, you know, it's nothing real special. The only kind of thing that I would reread that's like this is kind of Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, but that's because it's more of a mystery than a thriller. I feel like mysteries, you can kind of forget some of the twists and things, but with thrillers, it's kind of just like, it's so quick and short usually that you wouldn't reread it, for me personally anyway. So I probably will unhaul this at some point, even though I paid like 10 quid for this paperback. It was good. I enjoyed it. I'll probably in future only purchase thrillers on Kindle, like for 2 or 3 quid at most. Next up, I was in a bit of a slumpy mood, so I decided to pick up a middle grade, and so I picked up The Mystery of Black Hollow Lane by Julia Noble. This is a middle grade about a girl who goes to a boarding school in England. She's American, she goes to a boarding school in England. She's kind of finding out the mystery of her dad. Like, her dad went to this boarding school as well, she finds out and stuff, and her dad like left her these coin things in her attic that she finds. And her mum is a bit neglectful, like she's like a reality TV star now or something. And basically just the mystery of like this secret society that is involved in Black Hollow Lane as well. I really enjoyed this. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I've had a lot of 4-star reads this month. Stuff that's not quite hitting the mark for me, but it's fine. 4 stars is still pretty solid. This was really fast to read, even quicker than the other two. That's probably why I've read so many as well. On top of the Darren Shans, is that these ones that I'm picking are really quick to read, considering I did have exams in October. Speaking of, I don't know how many bloody books I'm going to be able to read in November, because I've picked quite a few chunky ones, and I'm currently still panicking about my study that's for my exams in December, like beginning of December, so side tangent. I'm straight up not having a good time right now, but it's fine. Yeah, this was pretty solid, honestly. It was gifted to me by Becca Fowle. Yeah, it was for my Secret Ghoul, which was something that Spoops did on her Patreon. It was like Secret Santa, but for Halloween, basically. I don't know if I'll pick up the sequel. I've put it on my wish list, like this was on my wish list. I've kind of put things on my wish list that I wouldn't buy for myself. So I've put the sequel on my wish list because I'm like fairly interested, but I wouldn't buy it myself to pick it up. But if I had it, I'd probably pick it up like quite soon. But yeah, this kind of goes into the fact that I was trying to read spooky books this month, other than like the first 2 that I had to read. Although Assassin's Crest, I didn't have to read it. I just was planning on reading it. I wanted to read a lot more spooky books this month, but I ended up taking a while to finish the Darren Shan series. Speaking of, actually, no, I've missed one. Funnily enough, I can't hold this book up physically because I have sold it already. I read Kingdom of the Cursed by Kerry Maniscalco. This is the sequel to Kingdom of the Wicked, which is a book about Italian twins. One of them dies like really near the beginning of the book. It's literally part of the synopsis. It's not a spoiler, don't worry. Her twin dies. She, in a quite a gruesome way. They are witches. Witches are being targeted by this serial killer, I guess. She makes a deal with Wrath, who is one of the 7 deadly sins / princes of the underworld, and, you know, romance blooms and all this enemies to lovers stuff. The first book I gave 4 stars. I really liked the setting in Italy. I liked this talk about all the food, the way that Emilia, who is the main character, likes to create food, to make food. She works in a restaurant, her family restaurant, stuff like that. Liked the intrigue around what was going on, who was involved in what plots and what was going on, meetings like different princes and stuff. That was really good. This sequel I've given 3 stars because the whole time you're just trapped in Emilia's head. She's gone down to the underworld or whatever they call it, and she spends the whole time in the same place, basically, just kind of stewing and scheming by herself, and it's really fucking boring. The sequel was meant to be new adult as opposed to the first one being young adult, because it was meant to be more steamy. And as someone who reads adult romance and erotica, it's hard to like reconcile that kind of thing because it's not enough. Like saying, you know, his velvet wrapped steel and whatever, and then basically fade to black is like, to me, is not a sex scene. There's almost like no point in it being there. It's really PG and it feels really strange but then also if it's for a particular age audience, I guess I can't really complain about that, because if you've got 16-year-olds reading it, I understand then why they're trying to make it more PG. But at the same time, when I was 16, God knows what I was reading. I think we need to give the kids a bit more benefit of the doubt, a bit more, I don't even know what the word I'm trying to say is. Anyway, my point is, this was boring. The smut in quotation was not worth it. I sort of liked the back and forth between Wrath and Emilia, but at the same time, it's like, fuck, my voice is fucked. But at the same time, it's like really obvious that they're both like madly in love with each other. The author tries to pass it off as like Emilia's convincing herself that it is just lust, but it's very obvious that they care for each other in the way that they treat each other. I just don't like when they beat around the bush a bit too long. Like, she took another 400 pages for them to actually get together, in quotations or whatever. I just don't think it was very good. I'm hoping, and even the ending, like the twists or whatever, they weren't good. Like, I didn't like them. I didn't understand why things are happening. I didn't understand. Things were rushed at the end, you know. I just didn't like it that much. Now that I'm thinking about it, I kind of want to give it 2 stars. I don't know. And I bought the Waterstones, like, blue edition, blue spread edge. And someone on Twitter was like, oh, does anyone have this? I missed out, and I was just like, yeah, do you want to? I'll sell it to you for, like, literally the price that I bought it for. So I sold it to a girl in America for, like, 20 quid or something, 15 quid or something like that. Because I just didn't want it. I've got the Fairy Loot edition coming, which, to be honest, if it's just as pretty as the first one, I don't mind, because at least it's on my shelves, like, as a kind of pretty thing on my shelves. And hopefully the third one will be better. I hope that there are only 3 books. I'm pretty sure it's just a trilogy. So yeah, I will still read the third one because I feel like it might be a bit better. But the second one definitely was a letdown in terms of, like, I don't even know. I think I was just expecting way more, and it just was not good. The last book that I read before reading Darren Shan was an ebook of a Kindle Unlimited smut book called Wrong, and it's about a cafe girl who fucks like her gynecologist or something. Do you know, I keep saying this in every wrap-up video, I'm going to do a Kindle Unlimited book at the end, Kindle Unlimited book review at the end of the year. So I'm not going to get into it now, like how good it was or whatever. I gave it 3 stars. that is all I'm going to say about it. I will be doing the video at the end of the year, don't worry. So the very last books or series that I read during October was 12 books, and that was the Saga of Darren Shan. I am just going to hold up the first one. If you're interested in all of my thoughts, there is a super long vlog of me reading this up in the corner. I am not going to go into details here, but Darren Shan is the name of the author and it's the name of the main character. It's kind of set up in the way that the main character, these are meant to be his diaries and it's meant to be something that actually happened to the author. So that's kind of the middle grade kind of setup of this. So him and his friends, or him and one of his friends, go to see the Cirque du Freak, hence the name of the first book, which is a freak show, but they're all, you know, they're not kept in cages and stuff. It's like they're actually a family and actually like have a bearded lady. It's very magical, like actually magical. And there is a vampire there and Darren decides to steal the spider. That's kind of the premise of the first book. The spider bites his friend and he then has to become a vampire's assistant in order to save his friend. So that's kind of the premise of the first book. I know that sort of spoils the first book, but considering it's 160 pages, you kind of have to know that about the series, otherwise I could tell you literally nothing about the series. It starts out as middle grade, definitely gets darker as Darren gets older. There's a few 6-year time skips between the trilogies. There's 4 trilogies in the series. Very spooky, still fairly light, but some bits get really, really dark. I cried quite a bit throughout the series. It basically is about Darren having to struggle with his destiny as well as becoming a vampire and all the kind of responsibilities that come with that. This was a reread for me. I read it at first when I was about 10. Really loved it when I was younger. Like, I was obsessed with it when I was younger. Currently still re-obsessed, to be honest, especially since reading the ending again. I just think it's really good. I ended up giving most of these 4 stars. I gave, I think, 4 or 5 of them 5 stars. I definitely gave the last 3 in the series 5. I definitely gave Trials of Death 5. Not sure if I gave The Vampire Prince 5, I can't remember. That's the 6th one. I think I did though. So I think about 5 of them I gave 5 stars, so nearly half actually. Really, really enjoyed the reread. Like I said in my vlog though, I think like as an adult it's very different to read these in terms of like I'm not sure who would be able to guess the plot twists and stuff, because it is very middle grade-esque in that the plot twists are obvious, I guess. It's you know, they kind of beat you over the head with the foreshadowing kind of thing, but it is for kids, so you kind of have to take that into account when you're reading it. But yeah, I really enjoyed this reread. Really glad I got to finish it in the month of October. I just think like that was my plan and that I'm glad that I stuck to the plan. So that is it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like. Make sure that you subscribe for future content from me. Leave me a little spider emoji. My voice is going. Leave me a little spider emoji if you were here but you didn't really have anything to say but you wanted to let me know that you were here. All of my links are down in the description, including my Patreon. If you don't know what goes on my Patreon, then this is what you're missing out on. I got thirsty at TikTok. It's meant to say something else, Kendra. I got distracted. Like, no. Anyway. Oh, yeah. I hope you feel better. Oh! Speaking of my Patreon, I want to give a huge, huge shout out to everyone who was at my deity tier. So that is Becca, Meg, Rachel, Lisa, Lydia, Mercy, Sarah, Tori, Adinda, Celeste, and Liv. Thank you guys so much for all of your support, and I will see you in another video. Bye!